Oh, hello, welcome. With This is the Thursday night quarantine panel on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. My name is Joe Crowe. I am one of your best friends. You may not have known that. It's true. But, and welcome to this week's quarantine panel on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track and the last one of the year 2021. So long, 2021. You weren't quite as bad as we thought you were going to be. Anyway, tonight, here is what we're going to talk about. We are talking about horror movies based on holidays, much like when Gary proposed this topic to me, the very first thing that I could think of, the only thing I could think of was Thanksgilling.
Oh, didn't think about
which is
that.
a real thing.
It is.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll get to that.
God help
but
us.
First, let me introduce our frightening panelists for tonight. One internet to my left. Lola, welcome.
Hello, my name is Lola Lariscy, and I'm trying to figure out a streamline will let me do like Google Eyes and stuff. I don't think it will. It's not fancy. Anyways, I'm a writer, and I watch a lot of TV and movies and stuff, and I am very much a hermit since COVID started, and that makes me happy. I like being at home.
And two internets to my left. Jonathan, welcome.
Hi, happy holidays, happy new year. I'm Jonathan Williams of WrestlingWithPopCulture.com. And I like horror movies and holidays. So this is a great panel for me.
See? Exactly. And one internet to my south. Ladies and gentlemen, Shaun Rosado.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, happy to be here. Nothing really to talk about other than the fact that the one reason I wanted to be on this panel was my parents had a rule when I was a kid, which was we had to go to sleep for a number of hours on Christmas Eve, which in my brain equated to about 4, which means about 4 a.m. I was allowed to get up and go play with our Santa toys. So at 4 a.m. I would turn on the TV. All the regular TV stations were on static, but on cable, Movie Channel, Showtime, whatnot, they were showing basically the only thing they had, which was horror movies. So in my brain, Christmas morning was always horror movies and playing with Santa toys. So when you said we were going to do this, I'm like, oh, I am all in for it. So I'm so happy to be here.
Tremendous. And
someone has an excitable dog.
Excitable dogs are the best dogs. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-conspirator, my DragonCon co-director. I'm not positive why we just got an angry face, but that's okay.
Oh, he just said why.
Okay, good. And
It's our good buddy Sherman.
It's Sherman. He's not really angry. I don't think Sherman can be angry. But my co-director, Mr. Gary Mitchel, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, this was my suggestion. We were pitching for this current batch of what to do for the end of the year. And sleigh bells just came right to the top of my fevered imagination.
And if you don't like our topic, that is cause for concern, Gary Mitchel.
Are you going to throw yourself into the drab room for that?
Yep.
He's going to self-Hulk spray is what he's going to do. He's going to...
But like Shaun, I have a long association of horror movies, and I've always loved the holiday-based ones, which there are more of them than you would think, to the point that if I remember being a kid, I had an aunt that got me a subscription to Mad Magazine, and it actually had a parody at that point. It was that popular. They did every horror movie is based on a holiday, but all the good ones are taken, presenting Arbor Day.
It's true.
Did somebody say Arbor Day?
I said Arbor Day.
All right, so let's start going around the horn. Lola, what do you have? Throw out your first, the first one that you want to talk about.
Well, rewatched 2 today. So I'll talk about the second one that I'm actually still rewatching, but whatever. Gremlins.
Oh, yes.
It's a classic. It's a classic. I mean, it's Christmas. It's cute creatures that always aren't so cute. And they get really scary and they haven't brushed their teeth in a while and they haven't had their coffee. And, but it's a classic and I love it. And it's so 80s. And oh my God, Corey Feldman was like 10. It's insane.
And I love, there's so much about that movie. Just the opening, the curio shop. I think my favorite gag is when the dad is calling from the inventor convention, and in the background you see a guy in the from the 60s, the Time Machine movie, The Time Machine, and it cuts to back to the mom talking, and it cuts back and the machine is just gone and there's a scorch mark on the floor and everybody's going
Well, not to mention the fact that also Robbie the Robot was one of the competing salesmen there that the dad's trying to go up against. Gremlins is in my top 3 favorite Christmas movies of all time. Like, in fact, at my family Christmas this past weekend, my family was asking, "What's your favorite Christmas movie?" And I went Gremlins. And my sister was like, "That's not a Christmas movie." And I was like, "Hell yeah, it is." But one thing I thought really interesting about Gremlins that a lot of people tend to kind of like gloss over because it's just it's so focused on the monster is the entire Futterman story. Like if you go back and watch Futterman's story about the fact that like this man is absolutely convinced that there are gremlins in the technology. There's actually a really interesting subplot that I only picked up on the last year or two, which is Futterman always talks about how if it's made in the USA, it is absolutely like rock hard. It's not going to be messed up by gremlins. It's not going to happen. And you find out he's been laid off and he's drunk and Phoebe Cates is trying to get him out the door. And he starts to confess that he's found out that all of the parts inside of his Kentucky Harvester has been replaced with imported parts. It's all manufactured in Japan and Germany. And he is rip-roaring drunk because his made in American Kentucky Harvester has now basically been subsumed by gremlin parts. So later on, when it comes to life and runs through their house, and he goes, "I knew it! It's gremlins!" Like in his brain, everything has become validated. It's true. Like this thing has happened. And I love that. And it's such a subtle gag that I didn't even pick up on until just a couple of years ago about the fact that all of the parts in the Kentucky Harvester were not actually American made. And I will always say it like that because of just, I mean, he's so great. Futterman is like the best in that movie. I love it.
Well, that actor's amazing.
He's great. I've seen him in other things. And he made such a big point about this is American made. Nothing will ever happen to this. And I'm thinking here from 2021, and I'm like, American-made cars aren't the best anymore. Sorry.
Yeah. But in
what are your thoughts
1983,
on Gremlins, Jonathan? Oh, well,
yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say 1982, 1983 when they were filming this. I mean, American made was a thing, that was a big branding, operation. So yeah, it was a pretty big deal.
So
how about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, Jonathan.
My thoughts on Gremlins
on Gremlins. Or
Gremlins,
American manufacturing.
I rewatched it last year around this time. And I'd completely forgotten about, I guess there was a version with Hulk Hogan in it.
Yeah.
And the Blu-ray version that I have had either it had that as a bonus scene, I think, or something, but I forget what the story was, but it was a good scene. But apparently it was taken out at some point, or I forget what the story is.
Yeah, it was in part 2 where basically Gremlins got into the projection booth and they screwed up the movie. And so then the usher comes down the aisle and goes, Mr. Hogan, there are gremlins in the booth. Can you stop them? And so he gets up and he does this whole Hulkamaniac thing. People want their fresh popcorn, their nice cold soda. You put the movie back on, jabronis. And then, they kind of mellow out and he's like, sorry, this won't happen again.
Oh, it's part 2?
That was part 2, but that is still an amazing scene and is worthy of inclusion.
And 2 also takes place at Christmas as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they're a little more vague, but sure, I see. Why not? Yeah.
Can we talk about the horrific tale of Phoebe Cates' parents?
I know.
Oh God, that is one of the darkest moments in movies.
Yes.
All movies.
In all movies. The death of the dad down the chimney, breaking his neck, and you don't discover the body until weeks after Christmas when you're trying to get a fire going and you smell something dead. You know, and I think what was it, Joe Dante who filmed this?
Yeah, it was Joe Dante.
And Joe Dante said, I always meant it to be a comedy, not a horror movie. And I'm like, no person puts that scene in a movie. He thinks that's a funny story. And I'm like, that is, in 1982, that was horrible.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you could tell that how he meant it, because when they lampoon the hell out of it in the second one.
Yeah, in the second one, you see the joke, but in the where it's like, I saw Abe Lincoln and he had the hat, and but in the first one, that is a dark one. I mean, even Gizmo's like, bro, like, it's messed up. It is a messed up moment. And you know what's funny is they also have a companion scene to that with what's his name, the judge character, the assistant bank manager. I forget the actor's name off the top of my head.
Judge Reinhold?
Judge Reinhold, yeah, where he basically, there's a whole scene where they're in the bank and he's locked himself in the vault, and they let him out, and he tells the story of how he watched Gremlins tear people apart and how he basically was going crazy. And it's a scene of him going crazy. If you ever get the Blu-ray, they have the whole thing restored. And again, super dark scene, but it happens on the coattails of the Phoebe Cates thing. So Dante was like, maybe this is too much heavy back to back. So
pretty heavy.
Yeah. Craig Isley in the comments point says that Gremlins 2 is actually set on President's Day, so it is technically a holiday.
There you go.
Yeah. So let's go to Jonathan.
Well, if we're talking about Christmas movies specifically, I think I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but people probably don't see it as a horror movie so much. But Christmas Carol is a ghost story, basically.
Thank you.
So, like, one of the most long-standing Christmas movies or stories out there is somewhat of a horror story. But
yeah.
Well, especially when the Ghost of Christmas Future comes in, that in some of those movies, that's the most terrifying stuff.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Scrooge was a version of that, which I kind of like Gremlins. It's comedic, but definitely has some horror elements to it.
There's so many different Christmas Carol has been done and redone in so many different ways, but the Ghost of Christmas Future is always scary. I mean, except in the Muppets one. But my point is,
even there,
and even in, but I guess what I'm saying is, the very idea of this awful person, he's visited by three undead specters. That's tough.
Plus his dead best friend.
Yeah,
there is that. Sure.
Yeah, and it's the song "The Most Wonderful Time of the Year" even has the line, and scary ghost stories. Getting scary at Christmas is tradition. Andy Williams says so.
Well, I think one thing I tell people a lot when I talk about specifically like Christmas music and whatnot is Christmas music. If you just play it in a minor chord, that is horror music. It is scary music. If you play it in a minor chord, and if you've never seen it or listened to it on its own, the Krampus soundtrack plays a bunch of Christmas carols, but they play it in a minor chord, and it's terrifying. It sounds horrific, and it is amazing. So that right there, like when people say Christmas music gives them the Wiggins, I get that. But A Christmas Carol is a really great example of, it can be a funny story, but it can also be really dark and really scary. And horror and comedy are two sides of the same coin. And if you do it right, you can really make a powerful message. Some great examples of A Christmas Carol, of course, is Scrooged, which, for my money, has the best Ghost of Christmas Future. But my favorite and scariest version of Ghost of Christmas Present is actually the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol, that weird Uncanny Valley CG one.
Oh, yeah.
When the Ghost of Christmas Present finishes his journey and he says, I have to die now, and he starts to waste away and he turns into a skeleton that's laughing as he dies. It is like, I was like in my 30s when I watched this, and I was like, that is messed Oh, I have never been freaked out by the Santa Claus Ghost of Christmas Present version of this ghost. But that version is freaky. And if you've not seen it, you should check it out because it will give you the spookies. And it's a great twist. Watching Father Christmas turn to dust is messed up.
There was a version, and I have no idea which version it is, but I think I saw it when I was little bitty on PBS, a live play version, and it was terrifying because they had, the smoke rolling in, the guy in the Grim Reaper suit, and I remember thinking, why did my mother allow me to watch this? But horrifying. But I get it. At the same time, Scrooge is terrible and deserved what he got.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and if you happen to be in the Atlanta area, there's a wonderful little company, Dad's Garage, that does Invasion Christmas Carol, where they do a Christmas Carol, but every performance they have a invading guest star, and you never know who it's going to be. Like they had Sigmund Freud, they had Young Frankenstein and the monster. They just wander into the story, and it's all improv off of, they're doing it, but then with these two. If you're in the Atlanta area, you should check it out.
I will add Dad's Garage to our links in the show notes. Of course, there's so much good stuff to seek out, but fun stuff. Let's go to Gary for your first entry upon the list.
Well, I'm going to stick with the holiday season that we're in. And one of the first ones that always comes to my mind when I think of holiday-based horror movies is the original Black Christmas.
Oh, so good.
Which is amazing. It's it's considered the first slasher movie. Halloween came after it. But there's a lot of who came first, but which is more important. But that's a whole argument. That's a whole other podcast.
Technically, it'd be Blood Feast back in the '60s, but continue.
Yes. See, it's a whole other podcast. But it's got Margot Kidder. It's intense. It's got one character she's sitting in the front window, and I think it's Margot Kidder. She's killed by being wrapped in a cellophane bag early in the movie, and for the entire rest of the movie, her corpse is there in the window of the house, just doing at people.
Margot Kidder doesn't actually get killed with the cellophane. I just watched this movie like 3 days ago. She gets the unicorn. She gets that ice unicorn sculpture into the head. Yeah, Margot Kidder gets it bad. Yeah, it's some random girl, but her dad is looking for her for the whole movie, not realizing her dead body is 2 floors upstairs in the attic, and it's so messed up. If they just looked up into the window, they'd see her just sitting, looking out the window, dead. So creepy.
Yeah, it's effectively done. Great cast, excellently filmed. I mean, when it came out, it really made a lot of people go, maybe these horror movies are going too far, especially because Christmas. Oh my God, horrible things happen at Christmas. It's been remade twice. Don't watch either.
No. Now, this is where me and Gary are going to part ways on this one, because Black Christmas is a great movie because it does not skimp out on the ending and the fact that, and this is spoilers, this movie's nearly 50 years old, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much, but the end of Black Christmas, they think they get the killer, but they haven't. The killer is still in the house. So when they roll credits, he's still in there and he goes for the final girl. So, nobody technically makes it out of that movie alive, theoretically. Nobody survives Black Christmas. They all get killed. However, Black Xmas from 2006 is a phenomenal remake. And I will argue people to death on this one. Because one thing I hate about Christmas horror movies, and this is going to happen in a lot of them, is that they're not very bright. They're very cold. They're very darkly lit. It's wintertime, so they try to make it cold and not really welcoming. Black Xmas, it is bright. It is bold. It feels like Christmas time. It is absolutely bright. They also make a story for Billy that is so messed up that I watch that and I go, who thought of this? It is bizarre. But if you're going to do something, swing for the fences. And that's something I really appreciate about Black Xmas. Now, the one from 2 years ago, not that great. Interesting idea, bad execution is really the problem with that movie. But I say if you've never seen Black Xmas, which is the 2006 version, go watch it and you will see one of the brightest, most welcoming Christmas horror movies you've ever seen in your life. And then it just gets gnarly and bloody and just wipes out everybody.
Well, it didn't work for me when I saw it at the time. Maybe I'll give it a revisit.
Try, yeah. See, let me know. Like, send me a message and let me know if maybe.
I thought they went too far trying to go. Oh, well, you have to explain the bad guy and give him a background. Right. One of the scariest things about the original for me is the fact that he's just some guy. He's just shown up. You have no idea why he's doing it.
You just know that his name is Billy, and you see his eye one time, and that's it. Yeah,
and he's just killing him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not cool, man.
No, definitely
so
not.
let's go to Shaun. What's your next choice on the list?
So I know we're all doing like Christmas stuff, which I want to go with like the one I'd already mentioned, but I'll save that for somebody else. I'm actually going to go for a Finnish film that came out in 2010 that I've become a huge fan of in the last 2 years called Rare Exports.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Now, if you have not caught this, and that's the reason why I'm bringing it up, because I think people need to see this movie. It's a small town way out in the middle of like the border between Finland and a couple of other territories, and this British mining company is drilling for something. And what you find out is basically this person who owns the company believes in Santa so much, he believes he's found where Santa's original village was, that Santa was based on somebody real, and that, basically the ice has kind of covered up that this original maybe house or town or whatever it is. And what they unlock is the real version of Santa, which is this dark, horrible, terrible version of the myth. And I don't want to give too much away, but it is a slow burn for like the first 35, 40 minutes, because just these random kind of slaughters are happening, like reindeer being eaten and dogs are being hurt and stuff like that. But then, boom, you turn around and like these old withered men start just walking around naked, and they start appearing everywhere. And you realize they're basically the quote unquote elves, and that there's like the real there's the real Kris Kringle. And like when you see this thing, it's like a mini kaiju. It is nuts. But I can't say anymore because you got to watch it. Like, it is crazy.
What is it called?
This movie is. It is called Rare Exports.
It's really, really good.
It's really good.
It is streaming somewhere, because as I was flipping through stuff the other day, I ran across it, and I remember that you and Gary have told me about it, and I mentioned it before, and I was I need to watch that. So it is streaming out in the ether somewhere.
IMDb says AMC Plus. That's all IMDb says.
Let me see. Hold on. I think it might also be with Shudder. Let me see here. Which AMC Plus does have it, so that makes sense.
Well, it might be on Hulu.
Yeah, Rare Exports is on Shudder if you have Shudder, but if you have AMC Plus, you also have Shudder as well. So that will. And
our good friend Becky Pano tells us, yes, that right there.
There you go, on Tubi.
Check them out.
Another user says on HBO Max. But yes, if you've not seen Rare Exports, you're in for a treat. It is subtitled. I have not found a dubbed version, but that's okay. Like, it is crazy. There are explosions. There are crazy Santa Clauses. There's a little kid who is just metal AF. It's Home Alone meets Crazy Santas. It's so much fun. But yeah, it's called Rare Exports. Go find it. Go watch it. Let me know what you think about it, because I want more people to know about this movie. It's so much fun.
For the first one on the only one I really, really wanted to mention, and I believe Gary was with me when I touched upon it last week. If you really think about it, Frosty the Snowman is terrifying.
Yes.
Okay.
The 30-minute Rankin Bass cartoon. I'm not talking about Jack Frost or, the one with Michael Keaton or the other one.
I just watched the other one recently.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is.
Yeah, it's a movie.
But the one it's something. I distinctly one of my buddies back in school would go to the VHS store back in the olden times and swap out the VHS tapes of the horror one and the Michael Keaton one. So,
that's mean.
Jack
Frost. So he's the guy who did it to me.
Yeah.
He worked at Movie Gallery.
By the way, if you do want to watch the horror version of Jack Frost, watch the Joe Bob Briggs version from Shudder on the last drive-in. He gives you commentary, and it's hilarious.
But the Frosty the Snowman 30-minute thing, when you hear the song, let's review. First of all, it says he's as alive as he can be. That's not he's alive.
He's undead.
He's alive as much as possible. That's not fully alive.
Partly dead. Only partly alive.
He's only partly dead.
Right.
His glass is only half alive.
And then when the song says there must have been some magic in that hat, they don't know why he's alive. They just say we just assume there's magic, which is scary enough a proposition as it is. But then at the end, when he threatens the children by saying, "I'll be back again someday." Come on, guys. Not cool.
That's a threat.
I like that you said that right as your cat's tail just went right across. That was beautiful timing. I love that.
He's got the best time.
He does.
And Sherman points out the terrifying moment. It's a balance of terror between the little girl almost dying hypothermia while Frosty is melting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Only one will live. Only one
child
will
going
survive.
to die, or is Frosty going to melt into non-existence? Exactly.
Yeah, save Karen or save Frosty, and they had to think about it for a minute. It's like, dude, go save the little girl already.
And I do want to, our friend Becky says, teaching those kids to disrespect those police.
Oh, absolutely, right?
Teaching them young.
Once again, my favorite, and I'll say this from now until forever, but my favorite quote in any Christmas special or movie is after they abuse the policeman in the town square, and after they run away, he goes, "Silly snowman, once they come to life, they don't know nothing." Like, this jaded, grizzled old cop, it's like, this happens to him all the time.
He's seen it 100 times. He's on the snowman beat.
I mean, you know what? When you're a cop in a frozen town, you're going to see some stuff. That's just how it's going to be. You're
going to see some stuff.
You're going to see some stuff. But yeah, I mean, in general,
if it was made in the 80s, he'd be Snow, if you know what I mean.
He's seen plenty of that.
Snowman.
Snowman is a whole different operation.
He is. He absolutely is. He starts talking like Scarface, you know. He's like, "Say hello to my little friend. This is Karen." And he just goes down the line, introducing the children. And they're like, "I thought that was going to go a different direction. I'll be honest. I thought you were going to, pull a gun or something on me, Frosty." But
now I want to see that. I want somebody to remake Frosty the Snowman with Al Pacino.
Right, with Al Pacino doing the voice. That would be amazing.
Okay.
You know what? Al's old enough.
You have one job.
Right.
I want to see the red splatter across the white snow.
It's his peppermint.
That would look so good.
He spills his
peppermint. Exactly. So I did want to say one of our panelists was supposed to be with us tonight. Our friend, the internet ghost, Elizabeth Jones. She is not only has the COVIDs, she's voiceless. So she's joining us in our comment section. So we wish you, really not just Elizabeth, everybody who's not feeling well. Y'all get better. We got to come back
again someday.
In a couple of weeks.
Yep, she'll be back again someday.
She will be back again someday. So Lola, what's next on your list?
All right. So another movie I rewatched today is Krampus.
Oh,
and
yes.
I just love the cast so much. Toni Collette is one of my favorite actresses. And I just love it so much. There's really not a whole lot going on. It's not like there's this huge plot. I mean, it's what you think. Krampus comes. The end. But it's so good. I just love them, their interplay. And the scariest scene for me is the very beginning when the Black Friday crowds come in and trample the poor guy in the big box store, and then they're fighting, and the kid Max is beating up another kid, and that just took me back to working at Walmart on a Black Friday, and I was like, I don't want to go back there. I'm
absolutely
I'm with Phoebe Cates. I'm not sure I like Christmas anymore. But
well, when the one kid gets eaten by the Jack in the Box like a giant python.
Yeah, the clown. Yeah,
that was scary.
Wasn't there a Nightmare on Elm Street scene very much like that?
In Nightmare on Elm Street 3, yeah, where I tried to eat Patricia Arquette. Yeah, but no, Krampus is an amazing choice. That was the one I was gonna mention, but I was like, somebody else will mention Krampus. I'm not going to steal that thunder. I'll let somebody else do that one. Krampus is by far the best horror holiday movie that's probably come out at least in the last 10-15 years. I mean, it is so good. Probably not since Trick or Treat, which was made by the same guy. Yeah, back in 2008. Yeah, same dude made that. Really just nails the idea. And I just got the naughty cut of the movie, which really isn't that different. There's just a little more swearing. There's no more gore. They actually made it exactly the way they wanted to, which was they'd always made this to be a PG-13 movie. They wanted this to be like a Poltergeist or an E.T. or a Jaws. They wanted it to be something that kids could watch, but still going to scare them, but not to the point where the parents we cannot let them see this. But what I thought was interesting was they talk about the fact that people are confused about the ending, whether or not they're all in hell and they're stuck in the snow globe, or is Krampus watching them. And they say, if you pay attention to the very beginning of the movie, we let you know what it is. And I've gone back and I've watched it a few times, and they said there's a hint on the TV near the beginning of the movie if you're paying attention. So I went back and I watched, and it actually ties back to something Jonathan said. The grandmother is watching A Christmas Carol, and A Christmas Carol is all about a warning, and then the next day Scrooge lives his life much more humanely afterwards. My theory is that Krampus is a cautionary fairy tale just like that. They all remember what happened from the night before, but they're all okay, and now they know that Krampus is watching them for the rest of their life. So they're not actually stuck in hell. They now have to live with the idea or the knowledge that they know what's coming afterwards if they don't. And I love that. I love that kind of he's watching, because it ties back into that Santa myth of, he knows if you've been bad or good kind of stuff. I love that.
Yeah, and it's a movie that proves that you want that the fine line between comedy and horror, because almost every actor in this is a fantastic comedic actor turning in a serious performance. And horror, like comedy, it's all about timing. So somebody who knows comedy can do the timing of horror and vice versa.
Yep.
And I think my favorite bit, though, is the Calvin and Hobbes reference when the daughter has gone off missing, and they're like, well, we can't go to this neighbor. They won't ever talk to us ever since the noodle incident.
It's true. Yeah. It is so much fun.
I love the Krampus movie, and I've seen several. I don't know if they're official sequels or if they're just other takes on it, but they look very low budget. But I'm curious if any of you know. It seems like the Krampus became this cool, thing for people that don't like Christmas to like in the past 10 or 15 years. Yeah, and apparently it is something that's existed for a while, but I wasn't aware of it until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, if that long ago.
I was going to say, Jonathan, one of our friends in the comment section said that they grew up being terrified into good behavior by the story of Krampus. So, for reals. So that's wild. I think
it was German folklore,
right?
Yeah.
I had heard. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lola.
I was going to say, is it German? Because the grandmother is German, and that's a nice tie-in. Maybe it's something that she grew up with.
Yeah, it comes from that region, from that very kind of northern region. But I had heard about it as a kid from one of my friends' parents who came from Germany. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I had not thought about it ever since. But in the early 2000s, there was a book that came out that was a collection of Christmas cards from the early part of the 20th century from all over the world. And a good chunk of it is Krampus cards, because Krampus is a massive figure in Europe. And so people were kept asking, what's with this Krampus thing? What's with this Krampus thing? And so then people did Krampus books in the early 2000s, which is when it revived in my brain. My friends know we've been playing in the same D&D world for the better part of 12 years. every time we get to the holidays, there's some kind of Krampus episode. We've been playing for like 12 years, way before the movie came out. And when Krampus came out, our entire D&D group's like, we're going, and I think it's because it just finally reached a point where there were enough books about it and enough people had talked about it that it's kind of reached a boil. Even in the commentary for the movie, they talk about that a bit, how they found books in the early 2000s about it. So I think it was just enough people had finally, put stuff together and said, hey, this is a really creepy story. Kind of like how Père Noël, kind of shows up quite a bit, but Krampus is obviously that very dark version.
Yeah, because I think Jonathan's right, because it was always kind of there. I didn't hear about it myself until I think the Venture Brothers did an episode.
Yeah,
like the mid-2000s,
Yeah, me too.
And it's just, I think Jonathan's like, there were a lot of people who were like, it's a very adult thing to be too cool for Christmas or too cool for the schmaltzy stuff. And so Krampus lets you celebrate the season while still going, yeah, I don't believe in Santa, but Krampus,
Yeah, and here in Atlanta, there's a thing every year called the Krampus Crawl, which kind of borrows from, I guess there are Krampus parades in Germany every year, but this is just basically several people get in costume as Krampus, not everybody, but then they just bar hop through little 5 points. And then there's even, you can get pictures with Krampus at Junkman's Daughter in little 5 points.
I love Junkman's Daughter. I haven't been there in years.
Nice.
And then it's Dwight Schrute on The Office. There were a few episodes where he was doing Krampus, and there was some other character that was very similar. I forget what it was called, Bell Schnicktel or something.
Something like that, yeah.
I actually have a sweater that has that on, a Christmas sweater.
Nice.
Of The Office.
Totally nice.
I was just curious. It seems like it just came out of nowhere, but then when it did come out of nowhere, there were people that knew about it all along, and they were, like,
cool, oh, yeah.
Yeah, obviously people who grew up in the regions, in the Germanic regions probably had a much better grasp on it. Me, I just kind of stumbled across it by accident. It was just a little nugget in the back of my head that over years kind of fleshed out into something. I was like, oh, wow. And then it blew up into this whole thing. And it's like, wow, this thing's crazy.
And I've seen, sorry to interrupt, I've seen some of those old Christmas cards that you're talking about. And some of them have Santa and Krampus. Like basically Santa's going to give toys to the good kids and Krampus is going to kidnap the bad kids, or so they're friends. They're like yin and yang.
It's like, I'm going to give the good kids presents. What are you going to do with the bad kids? Beat them in a sack and throw them in the river. That seems reasonable balance. Yes.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Keeps the population low, and all the malcontents, you're out. But one thing I thought was interesting, especially about those Christmas cards, if you can find them from the mid-century and earlier, is that Krampus is always kind of this anthropomorphized goat, right? He's a goat that stands up on his back, his hind legs, really kind of creepy stuff, which evokes a lot of what pagan gods, and people would say, Satanism and things like that. And it's like, so in the 80s, Satanic Panic, there's no way Krampus would have ever landed, right? Like, no way. But that's what I love about this movie. When Lola mentioned it, people keep saying, is he wearing a mask? And I'm like, next time you watch it, take a real close look when they do a close-up of Krampus's face. It is definitely some kind of, it's like he's ripped the face off of Santa Claus and he's wearing a mask, right? But his eyes are goat eyes. He actually has goat eyes behind it. And I'm like, it's like some kind of weird goat pagan god wearing the flesh face of an old man. And that is truly creepy. It's so fantastic. Yeah.
So gross.
Okay, well, that is terrifying. Let's go to, let's say, Gary, I believe you
actually, Jonathan's next.
It would be
Jonathan, let's go to Jonathan.
Well, I'm just, now that someone mentioned Tubi, I'd kind of forgotten Tubi existed. And I'm discovering all this. I typed in.
He's adding to his watch list right now. He's like, oh, that's
Tubi's
there
great.
Are 8 movies with the word Krampus in the title.
Oh, wow.
One of them is called Krampus 2. So is that actually a sequel to the one we're talking about?
There's only one Krampus as far as like that series that Lolo's referring to. Nobody's done a sequel yet.
Yeah.
But
that was a
it's one of those things that it's easy to do an Asylum Pictures version.
Krampus is public domain, so yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a really, really, really like so bad like the guys who do like Eastern Rim kind of stuff. Or the Transmorphers.
The Transmorphers.
Right.
Yeah.
They did a version of Krampus, and then that one made enough money. They did a Krampus too. Excuse me. It's horrible. Like, just don't. Just don't. Just don't do it. It's not worth your time. I mean, from like an anthropological, okay, that's a movie. Somebody put their time into it. It's interesting to watch. But like, if you're going to watch a good Krampus movie, there are better selections.
Yeah.
Like Krampus.
Like
Krampus.
Right.
Yeah.
Not Krampus. Watch Krampus.
And the lady from 2.5 Men, who I think she passed away recently, she is excellent in it.
Oh yeah,
Aunt
Conchata
Dorothy.
Farrell. Yeah, all the adults. Ironically enough, every single person who plays an adult in that movie has been in a horror movie before they did Krampus.
Sixth Sense for Toni Collette.
Yeah, Toni Collette. Conchata Farrell was in. Oh, what the heck was she in? She was in something in the '80s. I forgot off the top of my head. Adam Scott, which I love. This was one of like the main bad guys in Hellraiser 4.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's so in Hellraiser,
so affable.
Just a tiny little asterisk in Hellraiser 4. The guy who makes the original Hellraiser box basically gets, his whole bloodline gets damned to hell, blah blah blah. But a demon gets out, and the demon can only answer to the master of the box, and the master of the box turns out to be this old man whose apprentice kills him, and the apprentice is Adam Scott. So Adam Scott lives to be like. He lives to be like 400 years old because he keeps hell happy until he gets in hell's way, and then the demon rips him to shreds. But yeah, he was in a horror movie too.
Interesting.
They're all in horror movies, so they know exactly what they were getting into, which is what makes that movie so much fun. And they're all funny as hell too.
Yeah.
So what's your next pick, Jonathan?
Yeah.
I think it's still my turn.
Yep.
I want to talk about that Jack Frost movie that Joe brought up, but
Sure.
I have, in the past few years, discovered a lot of Christmas horror movies that I wasn't aware of previously through companies like Vinegar Syndrome. And that's where I got the Jack Frost one a year or two ago and finally watched it this year. But I also got one called Christmas Evil. Have any of you seen that one?
I have seen Christmas Evil. That movie is amazing.
And I watched a bunch of the bonus stuff. It was directed by Fiona Apple's dad.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah.
And I think it was originally a Troma release because one of the bonus things is an interview with the director, and it's kind of, I guess, a talk show format where the interviewer is interviewing him, and then Sergeant Kabuki Man is there, kind of like the Ed McMahon sidekick. So I guess the original DVD was a Troma release, but yeah, I just watched that one recently, and it's basically, for people who haven't seen it, this kid sneaks downstairs on Christmas Eve and catches mommy doing more than kissing Santa Claus.
Oh, jeez.
And then it scars him for life, and he grows up to one day go on a murdering spree on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, whatever.
Look, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jonathan is glossing over so much nuance of this movie. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so first off, so not only does mom do bad stuff to Santa Claus, but Santa Claus reciprocates. There's never actually like a full-on. It's all oral, as you would say. So Santa Claus loves to give, right? This kid took away the wrong message.
I should rephrase that. She wasn't kissing Santa Claus, but he was doing something with his mouth.
That's right. He was making sure that beard was put to good use. But so then the kid grows up and he works in a toy factory. Saver.
Sorry.
But so he goes and works at a toy factory, and he loves kids, but he's so into the Santa mythology that he has these books, these gigantic, they look like old ancient yearbooks from the year like 1602, and it's his naughty and nice list. And if a kid's done something good that day, he writes, this kid did something nice, and he has them going back for years, like they're dated, like 1975, 1976, and so on and so forth. And eventually he snaps and he starts to go on this rampage. And one of the weirdest moments in this whole movie before the ending, which, Jonathan, I have a question for you about the ending, is he goes to a Christmas party in the middle of his slaughter. And it's a moment where everybody is just happy to see Santa. And it's the first time people have been happy to see him the entire time. And he gets to dance with kids and he gets to dance with the adults. And he has this moment where, like, life is good. And he starts to reconsider whether he should continue on his murderous rampage. And then basically he sees some cop lights and he runs out the door because he realizes he might get caught. And then he continues to murder more people because he's not hanging out with like the fun folks anymore. But it's like a really sad moment where this guy gets his Christmas wish of, I found people who really love Christmas. And then it all kind of breaks around him and he hates it again. And he goes off and he murders more folks. But putting all that nuance aside, Jonathan, in your opinion, in the end, did he go completely crazy and just die when he went off the side of the bridge? Or did the Christmas spirit actually lift him off and he rides off into the Valhalla heavens on magical spirit?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, that could have been from sort of his perspective,
right?
As he was dying, he was seeing the light, so to speak.
But in your opinion, is when his van goes over the side and it starts to fly off in the air, is that him just hallucinating right before he hits the ground? Or do you think that this movie's just twisted enough where it's like, no, he actually took off? Like the power of Christmas took him off. He was doing the Lord's work, so like he gets magic powers. I'm serious. Like I've never had a chance to ask somebody this live, and since Jonathan just watched this, like I want to know, like I want to know if he what he thinks. Like
I don't think he really flew away.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I've only seen the movie once, so maybe on multiple viewings I will have different opinion.
Yeah.
I tend to agree because the rest of the movie is based in realism. So there's nothing supernatural about it. But there's a part of me, because it's a Christmas story, like I want him to fly off, but he murders everybody in the movie, so that's not really a great ending.
I think it is more in his head because, like you pointed out, he basically lives as if he is Santa Claus. So that's the way he envisions himself going out, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
but the movie does acknowledge that a Santa Claus exists at the very beginning, so it could be.
Could be.
Why in the world does that sound like a Thelma and Louise moment? It is. Like if you interpret it the way like Jonathan and I are interpreting it, it is a Thelma and Louise moment. It 100% is. But there's a part of me, a small, childlike, wondrous part that wants the guy to get away because like that would be the ultimate FU to everybody who wants the karmic the karmic repercussions to actually land on this guy. I don't know.
And that is a thing that Lloyd Kaufman would do.
It is.
And Shaun, did you have or did you watch the Vinegar Syndrome version?
I've watched just the movie. I've not seen the DVD with Vinegar Syndrome.
Okay, because one of the bonus features is a somehow they have some of the original comic cards, I guess, from a test screening or something.
Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, really?
That have like 5 check boxes, with great, from poor to great or something like that. And they all, I think every one of them except maybe 1 or 2 was poor. And then the comments were just things like, why does something like this exist? or just like, not good for kids.
Yeah, very clearly not good for kids. This is not something you show your 6-year-old. You show it to like your teenager who's feeling a little grumpy about, I got to get credit and dressed up, blah, blah. Well, hey, you could be this guy. Like,
So, Gary, what's next up for you?
All right. Well, I'm going to take us away from Christmas and go with one of my favorite holiday movies from the 80s, April Fool's Day. Which, if you have not seen it, it came out in the mid-'80s at the height of the whole slasher thing, at the height of the holiday-based horror movies. And it's a story of this group of friends who, when they were teenagers, there was a horrible accident, and they're all getting back together, and someone's killing them off. And the poster, I remember when I fell in love with the movie before I even saw it, because I saw the poster, which had all these people sitting at a big banquet table in various ways of being killed. And the hostess has her back to you. She's raising a glass and she has her hair braided into a noose.
Right.
And it is a wonderful, it's one of those satires that plays it just right, because it does it serious when it needs to be serious, but also knows when to step over the line to being ridiculous. And it has just a great cast, a great ending, and it just came out from a nice special edition from Shout Factory.
Can we talk about the ending, or can we?
I'm not really sure I want to, because I don't want to spoil it, but it is from the 80s. So basically, the movie is called April Fool's Day for a reason. Every single death doesn't actually happen.
Right.
It's all a prank on her.
One elaborate prank.
And then the very end of the movie is flashing back to all the deaths and showing you how they did they're not really dead.
Right. Like the first time I watched the movie, I was so pissed off. I was like, I just wasted 90 minutes on this piece of crap because nothing actually happened. What the hell am I watching? And then I went back and I watched it with the idea that it's called April's Fool's Day. And I was like, all right, let me try one more time. Mm-hmm. And going in knowing that this is all the most elaborate prank to play on somebody, because this person's always a prankster and they wanted to get the ultimate comeuppance on this person, I was like, okay. And plus, if I remember correctly, it was also her birthday, right? Too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was also her birthday. Yeah. So like, it was really just a fantastic. It was a really great way of doing a slasher, but then also saying, yeah, it doesn't count.
Right.
Which brings the stakes down. And honestly, it's one of those slasher movies that you could show, at least at the time, kids, middle teenagers kind of stuff. That this movie's not too extreme on any, particular part of the spectrum that would set off most parental alarms. And then, of course, at the end, even if they're a little freaked out, oh, well, it was all just a big prank anyway, so everybody got to live. I like that. I like introductory horror, like Gremlins, right? Like
training wheels horror.
Stuff. Yeah, training wheels horror. Yeah, so I love that pick. But the first time I watched it, I was so mad.
But then when you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, April Fool's Day is all about pranks, of course.
That's great. I had no idea this movie existed. Now I cannot wait.
Oh, it's fantastic, and some of the kills in it are really, really good.
Oh,
like the kills are fantastic.
There's this. The one that always stuck out to me is this guy who falls off of the boat dock and gets crushed between the boat and the pylon. From the waves, and it's a little gory, but it's a great kill.
It really is.
It's pretty probably fantastic. Also on Tubi, who are not a sponsor of the American Sci-Fi Classics Track, but could be. Hit me up.
I don't see it.
Come on, guys.
But I do buy a lot of stuff from Shout Factory, so.
Shout Factories.
Oh, yeah. That's where I got my Krampus cut of Krampus, my naughty cut of Krampus, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Is that a Shout Factory release?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a Shout Factory release.
The Shout Factory release.
Yeah.
I buy enough from them that they send me free stuff.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
What is that, a patch?
Yeah, it looks like a patch.
Yep, it's a patch.
Nice. So, Shaun,
okay. So for my shopping people, if you're going to buy stuff from Scream Factory, put something in your cart and close it. Wait about a day. They will send you an email going, "Hey, did you forget to buy this thing? We'll throw in a freebie."
Oh,
get you a freebie.
Sweet.
I've never done that with them, but there are other companies where I'll put stuff in my cart and go away, and then I'll get an email like, here's 10% off. If you want to complete that order.
Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Thank you.
They do want that sale. They'll do what they can to get that sale. But yeah,
little tip from me to you.
Anthony in our comments asked if we mentioned Night of the Comet.
Oh,
we have not.
It's a favorite of our good friend Kevin Batchelder. It
is. He has been. I've been incredibly jealous of him. There was, I think, a Night of the Comet convention at some point in the last few years, and he got to host Q&As with the women actors from that movie, and that was a big deal for him and for anybody. It's a good flick.
Well, for them too.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. This movie is just a one-off that sticks with you. I mean, it's wow.
Yeah, what holiday was that? Was it 4th of July?
It happened on Christmas Eve, if I remember correctly, because they're in Los Angeles. It happened. There was a meteor shower on Christmas Eve or something like that. It was like the Perseids, the last Perseids of the year or something. And there was going to be a comet that was coming through. and anybody who was outside watching the comet was immediately vaporized. They turned into little piles of red dust. And if you were inside, depending on the level of protection, you were either completely fine or you were turned into a mutant. It's a very weird movie, but it's the kind of weird that you like from the 80s, so it's worth a watch. I think the person that most people remember from that is Kelly Maroney, who's kind of like a huge scream queen of the era, and she's the cheerleader sister who's a little vapid, so when everything goes to hell, they're like, what are we going to do? Let's go to the mall. And it has one of the most iconic moments ever in 80s horror, which is they get to this point where they're trying to fight off mutants, and she's in a cheerleader outfit, but she's also got an Uzi. So it's this cheerleader mowing down people with an Uzi. And if you don't believe me, you can Google it. I'm sure you can find a clip on it on YouTube. It's hilarious. And like whenever people talk about like horror movies from the 80s, I will invariably see that clip pop up, at least for a half second of her just it's freaking hilarious.
Right, so what's your next pick, Shaun?
Yes. Right. Sorry. My pick actually. So I was in a Christmas frame of mind when I was thinking of all mine. But this one is actually fairly recent. This one came out in 2015. It is called A Christmas Horror Story. And it's an anthology in the vein of stuff like Creepshow and others of the like Tales from the Crypt, stuff like that. And it is bookended by the amazing, the incomparable William Shatner as a radio host. And they live in this little tiny town. I forget. I think it was called Bailey Downs, if I remember correctly, was the name of the town. But they're in this town called Bailey Downs, and he's basically trying to get people's Christmas spirit up for the year, because the year prior to that, 3 kids basically were slaughtered and killed at the local high school. And so they're trying to get over this horrible tragedy at Christmas time, and it's the year anniversary of it. So he's really plugging away. We got to make things, really cheerful. And it's an anthology of 4 stories that happen in Bailey Downs or is affected by Bailey Downs. And the through line of this is not only do you have William Shatner and his kind of like telling you what happened over the radio, you also have the story of Santa versus Krampus. And this is not Krampus like we saw in the Krampus, which is, by my estimation, the best Krampus that we've seen on film. This is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of Krampuses. And when I say that, seriously, everybody, take a moment, go to your browser window and Google A Christmas Horror Story and look at the cover art. This Krampus is ripped. He is an albino. He's got gigantic horns, and this dude is ripped, people. Okay? And so the story is, or at least the intimation is, that Krampus has gained enough power because people don't believe in the
Holy mother of pearl.
See what I'm saying? So Krampus has got enough power because people don't believe in the joy of giving anymore, the joy of brotherhood and fellowship, and Krampus's evil has been able to infect the North Pole. So Santa has to fight Krampus. So the implied is like all these weird stories about, these kids and these ghosts and all these monsters and all these little anthology stories that are happening are because Santa is losing his juju and Krampus is gaining his. So if you get a chance to watch this movie, one of the great magic tricks is that they tell you exactly what's going to happen from frame 1. And when you get to the end, you're like, I did not see that coming, because it's not a very well-polished movie. It is not on the high-end Krampus scale. It is very middle tier, very much made like you would see better than a sci-fi movie for the Sci-Fi Channel, but not as good as, something that you release in theater. So it's in that middle ground.
But I just posted a link to the cover art.
It's great. And at one point, like, all the elves in Santa's village go completely psycho, so they become like Krampus zombies. So like, imagine Krampus having to kill foul-mouthed elves as they become more and more zombie-like. It is amazing. Krampus, not Krampus, Santa has to take his he's got this walking staff, and he has to sharpen it down to a point. So he's using like his walking staff to just like rip heads off. Folks, you got to watch this movie. There is so much good stuff in it. There's also a really great story in the middle of all this that's about the spirit of Christmas. There's a really great ghost story, and there's also a really cool story about a changeling, which is something that I do not see all that often. And if you don't know the story about a changeling, it's when basically a goblin or an elf takes a child and basically replaces it with a little goblinoid of their own, and it takes the place of that child. It's an old Gaelic Celtic myth. They actually worked this into a Christmas story, and it's really gnarly. But if you've never seen it, go check it out. I'm trying to pick movies that people probably haven't checked out. So Rare Exports, Christmas Horror Story, like check. Oh, it's so good. Like I still am surprised at how much I love A Christmas Horror Story. It's pretty phenomenal. And the guy they get to play like Santa is amazing because he looks like he'd be a jolly old elf, but when he has to kick ass, he gets fisticuffy. I mean, he's ready to go. It's baller.
Mm-hmm.
That is tremendous. I wanted to give a shout out to a friend of all of ours who was on the show on our immediately previous quarantine panel 2 weeks ago. Bobby Nash is in. He plays a Santa in the Creepshow Holiday Special.
Awesome.
From I believe it came out.
It was
last year on Shudder, yeah.
2020.
It was last year on Shudder. I love that. That was a great one. That was with the were people, right? All the different lycanthropes. Yeah, that was a great one. I love that.
Bobby Nash is one
of those Santas.
And he said they filmed it during the summer, so it was it was unpleasant, I believe. But my gosh, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us for an hour. Let's go around the horn, and if you can be found on the internet or want to be found, tell everybody where you can be found. Lola.
You can find me. You can just Google Lola Lariscy, and either me or a bunch of old dead ladies that I'm related to will pop up.
Sure.
It's true.
Sure.
Try it. I'm related to them. I'm not an old dead lady yet, but give me time.
And Jonathan.
You can check out wrestlingwithpopculture.com, or you can find me on most social medias under Wrestling with Pop Culture. On Twitter, it's at WrestlePop, CULTR, because I didn't have enough characters.
Got to squeeze it in there.
Check out his stuff, everybody. It's good stuff.
And Gary.
You can find me here every other Thursday with him. You can find me on the Twitter as @Gary_Mitchel with 1 L. And that's pretty much where you can find me right now.
And there's more stuff coming in the new year. Because they can't. We decided we're just going to keep doing these forever. Shaun.
There's really not a place you can find me right now, at NumaZ on social medias and whatnot. So instead of trying to find me online, let me give you one more Christmas suggestion. This will be a real quick one. Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yes.
Oh,
British, zombies, Christmas time, high school. That's
that
all
would have been my next pick. Yep.
Go watch it. It's great. Not enough people know about it.
Yeah.
And they're singing too, right?
Yeah, it's a musical. It's got zombies. It's about high school, and it's at Christmas time. It's fantastic.
And look up Pop Cycled Bobbles.
Yes, and of course, find me and my wife whenever we go to shows. We'll be at Dragon Con, of course, at Pop Cycle Bobbles, and check us out on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely.
And all of the links that these guys have mentioned will be in our show notes in a little bit. And in the meantime, subscribe to us on the YouTubes and forward us to your friends and neighbors, and join us on the Facebook page where we do silly stuff like this all the time, semi-daily, in fact. Facebook.com/group/American Sci-Fi Classics. And in 2 weeks, we'll be right back here on Thursday. Also, I meant to say, if you're in the Gadsden, Alabama area, why don't you stop by and watch me announce pro wrestling? Check it out at SpartanWrestling.com or on the YouTubes, which some of you are on right now. We also have a YouTube show. You can see me. Probably the episode is coming out in a couple of weeks. I am in a ugly Christmas sweater battle royal. It is the greatest night, maybe, of my life.
High bar.
It's a high bar. There have been a lot of great nights. much like this one. It's this one, then the Ugly Christmas Sweater Battle Royal.
I hope your kids weren't born at night.
No, she was not.
Okay, not the greatest night of your life when your kids were born.
You know, it's a top 6, top 7. She knows where she stands. She knows where she stands. But thank you guys very, very much. We will see you in 2 weeks. Our topic in 2 weeks, Gary Mitchell, is
you'll hear it in the water. You'll hear it in the air. It's 20 years of Fellowship of the Ring.
Nice. So join us in 2 weeks when Gary Mitchell will say,
why is he wearing that ring on a finger?
Prince Albert.
What is happening? Good night, everybody.
Happy
New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. You guys are the best. We will see you all very, very soon.
See you next year.
Gary.